Yes, hello everyone. I'm Tapiwa Zamara, and I do apologize if you do hear a jackhammer. It's across the street. I can't help it. It just started, hoping it wasn't going to, but here we are. Yes, I'm Tapiwa Zamara, and I am the president of Student Government Association. Thank you all for coming to today's chat with the Chancellor. Today, I'm pleased to have and be joined by our Chancellor, Dr. Kathleen Lee, and she will be speaking to us and telling us a lot about what she does for Ivy Tech and what her office is about in general. So if you have any questions, we're going to have a Q&A portion after we get an introduction from her. So start thinking about questions, jotting them down, and you can also use the chat if you can't unmute at this time. So I'm going to open the floor to Dr. Lee.
Thank you, Tapiwa, very much. I appreciate the introduction, and I appreciate the chance to get together with all of you today, even if it is virtual, which I know you all gotten very used to over the last so many months. So it's really fun to see faces and to meet. I think we'll meet some new folks here. I'm not recognizing everybody's name or pictures. So that's great. Well, I am the Chancellor, which is a fancy title for the person who the buck stops at my desk, I guess, for Central Indiana. I report to the president, and so I'm not the top person, but I have the responsibility here. And I started at Ivy Tech 37 years ago, which is longer than most of you have been alive, including the staff. But I came to Ivy Tech to teach respiratory therapy. So I am a registered respiratory therapist. I worked at Riley and St. Francis before coming here. But on my educational journey, which so many of you are on right now, I started right out of high school in a four-year institution, got a biology degree, and decided I would teach high school. Now, there were two things wrong with that. One, there were no jobs for women to teach biology in high school because I was also not a football coach or a basketball or baseball coach. And they were looking for men who could do that. I probably saved myself at the time. That was back in the late 70s. The starting salary for a high school teacher was $7,000 for the year. I was like, I'm not real sure how that's going to work, but that's what the job was. So at that point, I decided to return to school and get an associate's degree, which I did. I got an associate's degree in respiratory therapy, which actually started me on the career path that I'm on right now and led to my very first, much higher paying job at Riley Children's Hospital in the intensive care unit. And I loved working there. It was night shift though, and then I switched to day shift at St. Francis, where I was introduced to Ivy Tech students. The first time I had ever met an Ivy Tech student, they had come to do their respiratory therapy training at St. Francis. And so in 1985, I had finished my master's degree at that point because I knew I wanted to get back into teaching. And in respiratory, it took a master's to teach. So I came over to the college at that point to teach respiratory therapy. And I've been here at Ivy Tech ever since. Now, when I started at Ivy Tech, we didn't have the North Meridian campus. We were all down on East Washington Street near the building where we have our automotive right now. So very near Arsenal Tech High School. We were all right there. And in the time that I've been here at Ivy Tech, I've had 5 different positions. I've moved from faculty member to a program chair of a respiratory therapy. I became dean of what was then health and public services. So it was all the health programs and the public service programs. Then I became the vice chancellor of academics. And I don't think I'm leaving anybody out. Then they asked me to be interim chancellor for about 6 months. Then I went back to being vice chancellor of academics. And then 2012, so just about 8 years ago now, I became chancellor. During that time, I also continued to go to school, and the college paid for my tuition for me to finish a doctorate. So I've been very fortunate to work both the hospitals and here had tuition assistance programs. And I was able to work and continue to go to school with my employer paying for school. So I came out with 0 debt from my graduate work, and which is good because I was still paying off undergrad. But that helped a ton. So that's sort of my pathway here. And that's a really weird story because, and John and Amanda and Sherry and Anna will tell you, in academics and in higher ed, it's not normal for a person to stay at one institution. It is much more normal for folks to jump from one community college to the next, one state to the next, or over to IUPUI and back to Ivy Tech and up the street to Martin University and back down here. So it's much more normal for folks to move around as they make their progression through the career ladder. But I'm a firm believer, period, but I've been blessed by God to have a pathway that was here at Ivy Tech. So, every time I kind of got the itch for something new, it kind of opened up here at Ivy Tech. I had also been really intentional, though, while I was here at Ivy Tech, as I started thinking about, well, this is good, but what's next? To volunteer for things, to get involved with committees, to get to network with folks, and to kind of ask, how can I help? There's a project going on. Is there something I can do? I'll sweep. It hasn't been that long ago. I was here at the college on a day when it got really snowy, and I scared facilities because I went down and got a broom and a bag of salt, and I was out putting salt on the front steps, and they were like, "Chancellor, you can't do that." And I'm like, "Why can't I? What's wrong with me doing that?" Granted, I probably shouldn't be dragging around a bag of salt, but why can't I be part of the team that helps? There was something, I saw something that needed to be done. Why wouldn't I do it? And so I think that's sort of just like my journey a little bit in a nutshell that brought me here today. And why don't I pause and see what kind of questions or 2 cents worth that you guys want to throw in on that. And you're welcome to type in the chat or just jump in there.
I
And
have
that
a
goes for
question.
staff too. You're allowed to ask questions, but
Okay.
go ahead.
My question is, so after you got your degree in biology, what made you pick respiratory therapy and not anything else, or even continue on with biology?
That's a really interesting question. I started just looking around for what else I could do. My mom is a nurse. She was a nurse. And I didn't want to do nursing because I don't like needles. And so I didn't want to have to give people shots. So I thought, I'll go into physical therapy. That's a really good profession. It's something you do after college. You pick up additional training, at least back then it was. And I read a lot about it and I thought I could do that. What I didn't know is that physical therapy schools are extremely competitive. And let me tell you, I am in my 4-year degree in biology, I was a really good BC student. I was not an honor roll student. My GPA was about 2.8. And that was not going to get me into physical therapy school. It was not competitive enough. I'm from the Pittsburgh area in Western Pennsylvania, which is where I went. I was living at home with mom and dad after my 4-year degree. Not a good thing, but I came to Indianapolis to visit a friend who had moved here after college, and she was working at IU Med Center. They had a physical therapy school. I thought, well, I'll go see if maybe there's any chance that I could apply there. When I picked up the brochure for physical therapy, the flip side was respiratory therapy. I had never heard of it, but I started reading about it, and I went and talked to the faculty member, the program chair who was over it, and found out that I would be able to work with kids, that there was a need for teachers in that area. And it just sounded like the right thing. And it was not as competitive as PT. I could apply and get in. And because I was going for an associate degree and I already had a bachelor's, that gave me the leg up to get in. I didn't find out until I was about 6 months into the respiratory therapy part of the program that respiratory therapists draw blood and they use needles to do arterial punctures. Nobody told me that. So, but at that point I was like, okay, just swallow it and get over it, because, if you want to, you're this far in, you can do this, you like it. Don't let this needle thing give you a hang up. My mom thought that was really funny at the time. But so I jumped into respiratory therapy. And, John, I see your question. Do I miss taking care of patients? Um, Not as much as I miss teaching in the classroom. But I can tell you what respiratory therapy taught me, because I worked both emergency and intensive care, and seeing this everything going on in COVID, I can honestly say I'm not sorry that I'm in the hospital, not in the hospital, but it taught me how to prioritize things and to approach things calmly. And so a lot of times the staff at Ivy Tech will say, "You're always so calm about everything." And I'm like, once you've worked in the emergency room where things are life and death, the fact that something here at the college, the paperwork didn't get done on time, is important, but it's probably not life or death. So we can all take a deep breath, think about it, and figure out the answer. Um, oh, that's a good question. And I'm going to ask, is it Bobakar? Am I saying that close? Or are you going to teach me?
It's Bubakar.
Bubakar. Okay. I didn't know if it was a long or a short there. So Bubakar. Yeah, good question. Let me go back and look at that again. Serving in leadership, for me, it was funny because since I've had promotions here at Ivy Tech, one day I would be working with people who were my peers and my fellow workers, and the next day I was their boss. So it was literally like on Friday, I was one of the gang. And then on Monday, because of my promotion, I was suddenly the boss of some folks. And I used to say, I didn't go home over the weekend and get to read the new manual. I don't have all the answers on Monday. If I didn't have the answers on Friday, I don't have the answers on Monday. And so I think one of the challenging things for me serving in a leadership position is the expectation sometimes that you have all the answers. And I don't think anybody in leadership has all the answers. I think what we learn how to do is ask good questions. And if you're really good, you surround yourself with people who are equally good at helping you answer those questions. For me, leadership is a team sport, and it's about working together as a team to address the things that need to be done. So I think that's one of the really challenging things. I think on sort of the flip side of that is, however, I do know at the end of the day, sometimes the decision is mine to make. And I can ask people for input and we can talk about things forever. But sometimes it gets a little lonely because you just have to be the one to say yes or no, that something is or isn't going to happen. And that sometimes that's hard for me because I like to work as part of a team, part of a group, but some days it's just my decision and I have to go with it. That's a good question. Well, I got, a couple of things. Tapi was asking what inspired me to keep going after facing the reality of being a woman in the workforce, especially back in the 70s. Especially after seeing male teachers who have coaching skills being hired over women. And I'm not even sure they were good coaches. They just happened to be men with a credential, but I'll just say that. I think two things. One, I was blessed with a father who always told me that I could be and do anything I wanted to. And my mom, who was a professional woman as well, and a nurse, both my parents worked outside the house, but had that same impression. If you wanted to do it, go do it. And they didn't put up with excuses. So when I saw that kind of blockade come up where it was like, okay, so this isn't going to work really well. I can either keep banging my head and going after this, or I can look to see if there's another path that makes sense for me. And in this case, there was another path that made sense for me. And, going into respiratory was something that I could do. It worked. I was fortunate to have that option. I don't know, did that help? Tapia, did that kind of answer? That was a
Yeah, that was a good answer. And my other question kind of piggybacking off of that, like, how did you kind of find that balance to not always think, oh, it's because I'm a woman? That kind of mentality, like, because sometimes I do run into situations and sometimes I can't tell, is it because I'm a woman or is it because I just wasn't qualified for the position, and just not let that, stop me from I guess going forward.
Oh, boy, that's a tough one. I think it's a combination of things. And, sitting where I am now, sort of at the end of the career, I can say over the years, it was developing that level of self belief. I know who I am. I know what I'm capable of, even if people around me don't. And I'm just going to keep kind of plugging away at this to keep moving forward and finding those people who also believe in me, and trying to, whether it's I was fortunate to have some good mentors who gave me advice and nudged me forward, both male and female, um, and to be quicker to listen to my internal voice, sometimes more so than the external voices. Um, Now, I will, keep in mind that I am aware of my white privilege. The fact that I came out of a family that could afford to send me to college and, kind of gave me a little bit of a head start um, on things. And so I came with that little bit of extra push behind me that, yes, I can do it. So while I had to overcome being a woman in the workplace, I didn't have to overcome being a person of color in the workplace. And I think there's a different narrative there that I won't pretend that I can completely address. But I do think it begins with self-confidence and knowing your own capabilities. What was my first position at Ivy Tech and how did I feel about it? I came aboard as faculty. And this is, I don't know if any of you guys are science majors or not. So I started January 1st of 1985. And in my first semester, they assigned me to teach anatomy and physiology. Now, keep in mind that I had had anatomy and physiology in college, but I had never taught it. In fact, I hadn't taught respiratory either. I mean, I had done it a little bit. And all of a sudden, I had to prep for second semester. Well, it would be A&P 102 now, second semester anatomy and physiology. I was horrible, absolutely horrible. And at the end of the semester, when the students did their evaluations, I just was shredded. I mean, they were like, she's a nice person, but she's a horrible teacher. And I remember the dean at the time called me into the office and said, you got like really bad reviews here. We don't think you can ever teach anatomy and physiology again. And, you just can't, you were just really bad. And I remember I went back to my office and just sat there and cried and cried. And the chair of the respiratory program, a gentleman came in, he goes, "What's wrong?" And I told him, and he's like, "Oh, and you think everybody's really good right from the very beginning?" And I was like, "Well, no." And he's like, "So what are you going to do about it?" I was like, "Oh, good question." I went back to the dean and said to her, "How am I ever going to get better if I don't do it again? If you tell me I'm bad and I walk away, I'll always be bad. But what can I do to be better? Who can help me? And how can I get there?" And she said, "I was just waiting for you to come back and to see if you would stick to it or not." And so I taught anatomy and physiology one more semester before, it actually wasn't part of my job description. Um, and then I moved on to teaching the respiratory courses. And then, like 2 years later, they asked me to teach chemistry one semester. Okay, so I had one 3-credit chemistry class when I was a sophomore in college. And I'm like, "You guys have got to be kidding." And they're like, "No, no, we need you to do this class." It was an intro to chemistry. So I went in the first day and I told the students exactly what I knew about chemistry, which was maybe one chapter more than they did. And so we went through the book together. And at the end of the semester, I surprisingly got rave reviews because the students said that I showed them how to learn chemistry because I was learning it with them. You know, who knew? So I've learned a lot in my time at Ivy Tech, and most of it I've learned from students, to be honest. I think we all learn together. Um, Jessica, I see you're a mortuary science major, and I can understand why you'd be a little nervous about that. I have to tell you, I grew up in a funeral home. My father, my grandfather, and my great grandfather, and my great great grandfather were all funeral directors, as are my brothers. Um, I but I didn't take over the family business because my father didn't think it was a job for a woman. So go figure. So I went out in the world to find something else, and but the funeral service is so changed these days. And again, I think it's just you need to learn what you need to learn, and sometimes we put too much pressure on ourselves to get A's. It's what you learn, it's not the grade you earn. But can you take what you learn from the class and apply it to the next class? So don't be nervous, just get in there, ask lots of questions, and you'll be good. Um, how many years did I serve as faculty before my promotion to chancellor? I was actually faculty for 15 years. And so in 1990, I moved to dean. And I was dean for, I think, 3 years. And then I was vice chancellor of academics for another 7 years before I became chancellor. So I was actually faculty longer than I was anything else here at Ivy Tech. Have I ever gotten over my fear of needles? Yeah, not really. I still don't like them, but when I have to do something with needles, I am so focused on the technique of what it is I have to do that I forget to be nervous about the idea. Like even all the news right now where they're showing everybody in the world getting their vaccine. I hate watching that. That just bugs me to see a needle go into somebody. But if I have to be the one doing it, I'm fine because I'm going to concentrate really hard on how to do it the best way. So yeah, I have kind of gotten over that. So what other questions?
How was your transition from us being in person and then when we first had to deal with the whole COVID situation and going online and everything? Like, how did you cope with that?
Probably not as well as you all did. I'm not very techy, and so I rely on the IT team at Ivy Tech to make sure I have everything I need. And so when I had to come home, and I'm home right now, and set things up, that was a little bit of a challenge. But I was able to, I've learned so much in the last 10 months how to do that. I think for me, the biggest challenge still is I live alone, and during this time, being alone has been amplified. And because, as I said to all of you, I'm very much a consensus builder. And John will tell you, I'm more likely to be out walking the hallway, and if I run into John or if I see Anna or Amanda or someone, I'll be saying, "So here's what was going on, and what were you thinking about that, and where's that project stand?" And having those casual conversations. My cats are just not good conversationalists, so. And no, I don't have 20 cats. I only have 2. So it's not like I'm the old cat lady. Talk to John about animals, but don't. So I think it's, I'm sorry, Teams is, the chancellors are starting to talk, and I thought I turned off Teams, but yeah, that's been, I think the challenge for me is just getting used to being here. And now that we're kind of going back and forth a little bit, that helps. So I get to see a few more folks that way, but I'm still trying to be very careful about being socially distant and all of that. Do I have any advice for students who want to pursue higher educational opportunities but cannot afford them? Yeah, scholarship requirements can be really discouraging, but I think that's where thinking as you start looking at, there's Ivy Tech, and of course there's Pell and federal financial aid, but it's also if you need to work or if you can work, It's finding those employers that do have tuition assistance. Some companies like FedEx are very well known for, they don't really want you to be a long-term FedEx employee. They expect you to be going to college while you work at FedEx. Amazon's a little bit that way. Mike's Car Wash, or Crew, I guess it's Crew Wash now, is the same way. They have some good tuition reimbursement there. And we even work with companies who will sign agreements with us that if their employees come to us, the student doesn't have to have any upfront money because the tuition assistance will kick in and help cover it. So it's looking just beyond scholarships, because you're right, scholarships can get really discouraging. 50-page papers, you have to win the spelling bee, you have to have a 4.0. Sometimes you just don't fit into the right categories. But there are other places. There are also foundations, county foundations, community foundations that have scholarship programs as well. So there are opportunities out there.
I have a question again. I have so many questions. So I noticed that a lot of my class, actually all three of them, have free books through, I believe it was Cengage. Is that going to be something that carries over after COVID? Because I know personally that textbooks were something that troubled students prior to COVID. And I think that it just became magnified during COVID because people didn't have, as many funds anymore. So is that something that will continue on, or is this just a COVID program?
I think that's something that the college is exploring that could possibly even continue on. Right now, we're using some of the CARES Act dollars that we received to help make that possible. But the whole idea, and one of the conversations that's been going on, is around inclusive tuition, where, when you pay your tuition bill, it covers everything, books included. And now that's not saying that tuition wouldn't go up a little bit, but the idea, if we can figure out a way to make the books free or included, that would be great. That's also why that many of the classes are going to open source books, things you can just go online and find, and you don't have to go to the bookstore and buy them. So more and more classes are being encouraged to look at those kind of offerings wherever possible. So yeah, it is something I think the college would love to continue. It's just a matter of figuring out the finances. That's a good question. I believe the technology fee is still in place, because even now, even probably more so than before, the fact that you are all virtual has put an even bigger strain on our internal systems to make sure that, at one point we had more Zoom rooms running than like any place else in the country. So it is still there. So I think it's still there. And Anna, you might only online classes pay the extra fee.
I mean, I'm not going to explain this well or equitably, but I think that it's the difference between an online class and a virtual class. So the virtual classes that are listed as virtual have that live instruction where you're doing something like this with your instructor, or another kind of live thing. An online listed class are those classes where there's no live feature. So you may be watching recorded lectures, doing those more passive things, watching PowerPoints, completing the assignments. Those are the courses I believe that have the tech fee attached to them. Does that sound right, John,
Yeah,
Kathy?
it does. I'm not a good one to quote that kind of detail though. So
I don't know. I mean, I don't know the
Mhm.
who, the what, or the why about how that decision was made. I just know that's the way it's being implemented.
Yeah, we're trying not to tack extra fees on just because suddenly everything is online, because everything's not really online. It's either virtual or online. So I know that the college is trying to be really cognizant of that. Is it Kaya? you raise a really good question. How do you stay motivated coming back to school after a while during this pandemic? And I do think a lot of it has to do with making connections. Um, in your various classes, if there's a way, and if the instructor's not providing you a way to hook up with other folks in your class, maybe asking them that, if there's a way to create study groups. I can tell you getting involved with SGA, I highly recommend. I mean, not necessarily running for office, but you could, but just even checking out the various activities that they have and are providing as a way to meet other like-minded individuals. So you can try that. And I think just reaching out to in your courses, whatever you're taking, see if there's anybody that wants to, um, get together to study just through a Zoom room or a Teams or whatever kind of access you have, Skype, whatever. Even though we did have some nurses who were physically getting together to do a study group and forgetting to wear masks. So I would tell you that's not a good idea. If you're going to get to physically together, make sure you're still social distancing and being safe that way. But I think those are little things that help. Why don't we have housing for our international students? We don't have housing for anyone. As a community college, that's just outside of our mission. Now, with that being said, there is a discussion that there are some folks who have talked to us about partnering with us where they would handle the housing and we could make it available to students, but it would not be something Ivy Tech just is simply not structured to handle residential life. And so we just don't do that, unfortunately. I know it would make it easier for some of our international students. It's just not the mission of the college. Better support group while in college. I think it really is just finding like-minded folks who maybe are studying the same thing that you are. Study buddies, pairing up with 2 or 3 other folks to help prepare for a class, or just people that you check in with each other at the end of each week to say, so how were your classes? Did you get up and get to that Tuesday morning class? Folks that are going to encourage you. But some of my best friends in the world are still people that I went through my respiratory therapy program with, because we bonded over mutual pain. Those really hard classes are the ones that wring sweat and tears out of you and kind of help you. You help each other get through it. So I think that's probably my best advice. But again, I'll say that, check out the things that student life is doing. There are a lot of activities where just doing something silly with a group of people might help you discover that new best friend that can be there for you. Will students be required to take a COVID mitigation test? We are not currently going that way because we don't have a residence, and all of our students, all of you are out in the community and you're coming and going and we're coming and going. At this point, we are not looking at doing any kind of testing like that. We just have way too many students they might only be on campus for an hour, even in normal times, because they're taking online courses. So that's not currently part of our plan. So that's why if you come to campus right now for an appointment, you will, as you come through the door, we are doing screenings at the door, asking the basic questions and doing a temperature screening. But it's just it's really honor system saying to you, have you been around anybody that's sick? If you're sick, please don't come to campus. Go home and phone in and talk to your advisor or talk to your instructor, and let us help you through that way. I think I'm also supposed to share with you a couple projects that are going on and that would affect students. And the one that I'm really excited about, and we think about coming back to campus, is we will be opening a new intercultural center on the second floor where the democracy wall is, if you're aware of that, right above the food court and the flags. That glassed-in room there is being transformed into an intercultural center. There will be a staff person there, and it will have all kinds of resources to help not only our international students, but all of our students who might have questions and about getting involved and fitting in and a variety of activities. So I think that's going to be really exciting. I'm sorry we didn't pay your electric bill there, Sherry, and you have to move around some. Natasha, are appointments required to visit the library? I believe so. If you want to check in with the library, they're there to help you, but I don't know how open they are. But I might have been thinking of 2 weeks ago. Anna?
The library is closed through the end of next week for that first 2 weeks virtual time. Did I cut out?
Yeah, Anna cut out.
Okay, the library is closed through the end of next week for that 2 weeks virtual time. Everything's virtual the first 2 weeks.
And then after that, no appointment required, correct?
As of right now. Yes.
Right, we haven't
Now
addressed, yeah.
Yeah, for computer labs, students can come to the main building and access those as space allows.
Do you need an appointment to use the computer lab?
I don't think so.
No.
Just
No.
any office, you need an appointment to visit an office, not the lab, or perhaps not the library.
Right, and really, if you come to the front door without, say, the North Meridian Center, and you wanted to go into express enrollment to check something, unless there were a crowd of people in express enrollment, you would suddenly have an appointment. So it's kind of magic. But the idea is, if for some reason an area gets overwhelmed with, 50 people showed up and the area shouldn't hold that many, then we would have to say, well, who has an appointment and who doesn't? But the open computer labs in the buildings are open. And as long as, if you go to one and it looks like it's too full and the computers are taped off, then just, go to the next open lab. And I think the same thing is probably going to be true of the library, but we'll have to watch for information on that. I'm not sure, Boubacar, what leadership forms you're asking about.
Leadership Academy is the Leadership Academy.
I'm going to have to let Amanda or Anna speak to Leadership Academy, which is a great opportunity, by the way.
It is a great opportunity. So the Leadership Academy is a statewide program, and so it's run on every single campus. So it's run on all 19 campuses. And the reason why we do it in the fall is it's a chance for students who have maybe been on campus for a semester to get a little bit more connected. And it's a chance to really get interacted, but it's tied to some scholarship dollars. And so that's why it's ran only in the fall. So that way you can use your scholarship dollars in the spring semester. There is a really great opportunity, and we can send some information about it, but there's a Leadership 2.0. I'm blanking on the name, but it's Ivy Advanced Leadership Series. Did I get it right, Anna? Yeah. So it's usually we get together in the spring for a leadership conference, and so we're unable to do that this year. But there's a really cool program where basically all 19 campuses are putting on different programs, and you can sign up to take a pathway. And so you have the opportunity to attend 40 different leadership programs this spring. And so there will be information coming out this semester about it. In a few short weeks, actually, like in the next couple of weeks, you'll see information about this series. And so you can attend different programs across the state with people.
Yeah, and I agree. I know Tapiwa just did the Leadership Academy, and I got to speak to our local group. That's a really good way to meet folks that can support you through a program as well. And I would encourage you that as you're working on things, if you have questions or you're feeling overwhelmed, don't hesitate to talk to your faculty member, staff in student life, you know, some of the folks in Ivy Cares, let your fellow classmates know we do have a mental health counselor on campus and can help make those connections. So there really is help on campus, but it's one of those, you have to let folks know what you need so that they can come alongside and help you.
Dr. Lee, I do have a question.
Sure.
Sorry, I got a little tired of typing in the chat, but my name is Jayla. I wanted to know, I see that Ivy Tech is doing a lot of like different partnerships as far as transfers goes. I did just read the current article about the one with Martin University, which I called and they told me they were a PBI, not necessarily an HBCU. My question is, will there be any opportunity to come or in the future where Ivy Tech has a partnership with HBCUs for like an easy transfer?
That's a really good question. The only reason Martin isn't an HBCU is because they weren't formed soon enough. In order to qualify in that category, you have to have been put into existence prior to 18 something. I don't remember the date. We have talked in the past to Fisk University in Nashville, Tennessee, and have a good relationship with them. We have not pursued too many others. I think there's been a conversation with maybe Wilberforce in Ohio, which is a little bit closer. We haven't gone too far afield from that, though, but many of those schools have great interest in helping students transfer. So again, that's one where if you have a school that you're particularly interested in, let Dr. Cowles or I know, and we'll do everything we can to open those gates for you.
Thank you.
Oh, before 1964. Why, thank you, Amanda. You knew that off the top of your head, right? Yeah. Uh-huh.
Thank you, Google.
Yeah, really.
Speaking on transfers, I kind of want to know what's the difference between an agreement with another university, between Ivy Tech and another university, versus the TSAP program.
The TSAP program is something that was created a little bit more by legislation. And it says if you take these credits at Ivy Tech, that the colleges that are part of that, which is pretty much the other state universities, will accept that as a whole piece and move it forward. It doesn't really, TSAPs will speak a little bit to content, but not as much as some of the 2+2s that we have, or even 3+1s in a couple cases, where it's like I'm trying to think, our education degrees. You do 2 years at Ivy Tech, it's a set curriculum, and it transfers, and now we're working on automatic transfers. So if you complete at Ivy Tech with a certain GPA, you automatically get into the program at the corresponding college. And so those are starting to come out more and more as well. Probably the best way to find out if you're interested in anything at IUPUI is to go to talk to the passport advisors, because they're the experts on all of our relationships with IUPUI. With the other schools, it's a little bit more one-off, but yeah, it's not a big difference. It's just how they sort of came to be, I guess, if that makes sense. And if anybody else wants to add to that, feel free to, but.
Hi, Chancellor Lee. I just wanted to ask, so for courses that require hands-on experience, say like for informatics or hardware, software support, photography, like virtual instruction is, kind of a disservice for those courses, because you actually, you need to be like on campus in the lab, having your hands on these pieces. Is there any consideration to like have at least like a hybrid schedule for those courses where the students can go back to campus and have that hands-on experience?
We do have some of that right now. Every program had to put forth those courses that they felt absolutely had to have the hands-on. Like culinary is a good example. Nursing's a good example. And so I think every school has some segment of lab or certain classes. We then had to have those approved by the statewide safety folks and provost to allow those classes to be on campus later this semester, even some this first 2 weeks. So it really depends on the decision of the program chairs and the faculty as to what they thought the the level of necessity of getting that hands-on experience was. I think for the most part, the faculty all completely agree with you that, we would prefer to have students on campus. We'd prefer to have everybody in the classroom, hands-on to the various labs and all of that. But right now, just trying to be as safe as we can. We've pared that down to the bare minimum. But our hope is that even as the semester goes on, that we'll be able to make that happen. And it will probably be, you're right, in a hybrid where maybe half the class comes one day and the other half comes another day, to keep the labs and classrooms from being too packed. But suddenly you're going to see a cattail because somebody just decided to come and visit. The birds must have gone away. So I know it's probably not the best, that's probably the best answer I can give you at this point. It's really being decided on a case-by-case basis. But thanks for asking that.
Thank you.
I know this might be like a far out question, but when is Ivy Tech looking to transition back to somewhat normalcy?
So when do you think normalcy will be? Is the question. If we had our way, it would be tomorrow. But we abide by, in the case of the county health departments and what they're telling us we can and can't do. And so I think until we see positivity rates back under, was it 5%? We were at like 23%. I think we're down to 18%. Till we see positivity rates back down, because we're not a closed environment campus, like say a Butler is, where they can bring everybody back, create a bubble and say, you can't leave campus. And if you do, you have to be tested and all that. All of you live in the real world and you come and go with your own families and your jobs, and you spend some time on campus, but you're not dedicated to campus. So I have no idea. That's a fancy way of saying I have no idea. I'd like it to be February 1, but I am really hoping, here's my hope, that by April, May, that we start to return to campus some, because I really want to see us do an in-face graduation this year. Totally selfish on my part because it'll be my last one before I retire, but I really hope that we're back to a face-to-face by this summer.
Speaking of graduation, I am supposedly set to graduate in December of 2021. So I was wondering, does Ivy Tech have a graduation for December? Because I think I was told that we don't have December graduations.
Lies.
Okay, lies.
We do.
As a resident member of the commencement committee, yes, we do have December commencement, so winter commencement. So that is a unique thing to the Indianapolis campus. So, and I will personally make sure that you have that information.
Oh, great.
Yeah, we don't do a summer graduation, but we do both a December and May graduation. This year we had to do a virtual, which was interesting, and that's probably the best word I'll put on it, but not what we preferred.
I think we have time for one more question. Well, actually, no, we don't have time for one more question, unless it's a short one. Anyone have like a quick question? If not, I'm going to turn it over to Amanda because she has something, a little raffle thing. Go ahead, Amanda.
Let's see if I can do this. So we have, can you see my lovely spin wheel?
Yes.
All right, here we go. And it looks like, Jordan, you have won our AirPods. Oh, there's sound effects. How fun is that?
Congratulations.
Oh, that's crazy. I never won anything.
Oh, wow.
That's so
I'm
exciting.
I swear.
Congratulations, Jordan.
So, like, how do I get it? Do I have to, like, show up at the school?
I'm actually going to send you an email, Jordan, but I'm going to put my email in here as well. Send me an email and we'll get your address and we will mail them to you.
Oh, sweet, sweet.
Thanks for joining us, Jordan. See, it pays to show up. And then you should tag us on social media and say that you got them.
Oh, yeah, sweet, sweet. Yeah, I'll do that. All right,
Yeah,
I'll see
so-
you now.
Very
That
good.
is
Well,
awesome.
thank you, everybody. I really enjoyed chatting with all of you today. I always love the questions and the thoughtfulness that behind it all. So I look forward to a time when maybe we can all sit down in person and
Yeah.
have this, even if it's in the food court, 6 feet away from each other. But
Well,
Yes,
Dr. Lee, thanks so much for taking time with us today. We greatly appreciate it. Sherry, do you want to make a plug for some of your programming coming up?
Absolutely, shamelessly. So a little bit higher up in the chat, you should see the full flyer for the weeks of welcome. So that's through the end of this week and all the way through next week. We have all kinds of virtual, COVID-friendly programming scheduled for you guys. But one in particular I want to make sure I point out is Monday. We'll get back together again for breakfast with the president, and that's at 9 o'clock. So you can get your bowl of cereal or bagel or what have you, and join us at 9 and have similar format to this with Dr. Elsperman as well. So that's a big one. And I think we have, do we have a prize to raffle off for that one too?
We do. We have another pair of AirPods. So we have another pair of
Okay.
AirPods.
So another opportunity to get AirPods and talk with the president. So I'll attach that file once again so that you have it, but you can find, if you follow us on social media or keep up on Ivy Life, everything with all the details and times and Zoom locations and all that will be posted there.
And today's the last day to register for the Crave box, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah, thank you. So we have our first Friday Family Fun Night virtual version next Friday, and we're raffling off 3 Crave boxes, which is like a giant box full of a ton of different, a whole variety of snacks, and we have 3 to raffle off. I think 26 have RSVP'd so far. So as long as you go in and RSVP to Friday Family Fun Night, which is taking place next Friday, by midnight today, you'll be entered into that drawing. But all those details are also, I just posted on social media about that as well. So you can find all the details there.
We're watching a Goofy movie, right?
We are watching a Goofy movie. It's going to be fun. Yes.
And then tomorrow, an event for the whole family, we are having a family scavenger hunt. So you can join us on Zoom and we have some big prizes for that. And so there will be a scavenger hunt, I believe, via the alphabet. So you'll be finding items for each letter of the alphabet. So that'll be tomorrow. So
yes, so much things, so much stuff, all the things. I just sent the flyer again so that you have it. But again, you can always reach out to any of us in Student Life, reach out on social media and all that if you ever have questions about upcoming events. Yes, cool.
Well, thanks so much. Again, thanks to SGA for hosting this. So Jayla, you're still here, and Tap, yep, thank you guys for hosting. We appreciate it. And thank you to our administration. So Dr. Cowles and Anna and Dr. Lee, we appreciate you guys for joining us today. So, and thank you everyone for taking time out of your afternoon. We appreciate it. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
yeah, good luck this semester, everybody. Do well. Take care.
Thank you, Dr. Lee.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye everyone.
Thank you.